stare in my eye. And you like manage to not stare for like 10 seconds.
It's just fear.
Yeah.
It's just pure, unadulterated fear. I'm like, there's a camera, there's loads of people, this is really important. If I don't move anything, then no one will know that I'm just
It's just so
petrified.
crazy to me though. And you can do your eyebrows left and right, move them up and down, both of them.
I can do one. Teach me your ways. Go.
I didn't know. I didn't know that my eyebrows were as expressive as they are until I was like 13. Someone took a picture of me like back in the before you.
Real camera where you actually developed the film.
Tell me about it.
Yeah.
And I was like 6 months later when we got the film back, I was like, oh my god, what's my face doing? And everyone was like, what do you mean? And I was like, what's my face doing? Because I was in mid-conversation, I was kind of in the corner of the frame, and they're like, no, that's what your face does. Because obviously when you're looking in the mirror, you don't, realise you're not really having a chat in the mirror, and you don't really see it happening. And it was a shock, and so yeah.
Well, I feel like you've embraced it. It's a hidden talent. It's so amazing.
Thanks. I'm
it could be
unaware of
like
what they
Britain's
do.
Got Talent. Maybe you can go on that show.
There we go.
At Game of Thrones,
Plan B.
Yeah, right.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay, so we talked to Natalie about what life was like. I mean, clearly, as we already said, this Game of Thrones, career changing for both of you. And
starting for me. Yeah.
Right? Yeah. And I mean, where were you when you got the call, when you figured out this was happening for you?
Well, when I got the call for the audition, I was standing on top of a loo at my workplace, so that they couldn't see if they looked underneath it and it was in there. And I was like, quietly on the phone. Because that was like when you're I was doing lots of jobs to pay rent, and one of them was working at this museum where you just stand around. That's literally all I did. And so every time my agent would call, which was once every 6 months, I would run into the loo and kind of. So yeah, I was incredibly unemployed when I got going through.
Me too, sister. Me too.
Yeah.
And now, I mean, looking back at that moment and where it is today, what have you learned? Have you changed at all, do you think, as a person?
Completely. Yeah. I mean, I think you can only change so much. I think who I am is the same, but now my entire world is different.
Right.
Yeah. Everything's changed, and I think it's an extraordinary thing. And I don't know whether it's just because it's been, essentially a decade of life that's been lived. So a huge amount of real life things have happened in that time to kind of change me. But I just feel like I have found a voice that I didn't really even know was possible 10 years ago to be able to have. And that's been the most remarkable part of this journey, has been that.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
And especially on this Mother's Day weekend, I feel, it's important to recognize the female characters and the strength, Mother of Dragons, of course.
It's so funny the amount of Mother's Day stuff I get, and I'm like, I so don't have a child.
I know.
A dog child?
Yeah, I do have a dog child.
A dog
that's
child.
true.
A
I
dog
do.
child.
It's not,
What kind of dog do you have?
a wire-haired fox terrier.
Aww.
She's just the best dog in the world.
The best dog in the world.
She is.
I love it. Okay, let's talk costumes. Do you guys have a favorite that you love to wear? Even the jewelry. The jewelry is so amazing.
You've got some jewelry.
I know, yeah. Do you remember when Michelle was just like, you're all getting jewelry? And we were like,
Yes.
Yeah.
I got a ring.
Yeah.
I got a necklace. It was great.
And it all had its own backstory.
I know.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
I had one ring that was like from season 1 that I decided was my mother's. It was her mother's.
Yes. And does it take long to do the costuming and the... Right?
I mean, yeah. Oh yeah. It's that like, do you need the loo, babe? Because I'm going to take half an hour.
Oh, do you need the loo? Because I need the loo because I've been sewn in to
Yeah,
this.
literally.
Can we just, I need to pee, so.
Yeah.
There's no getting out of it.
And then you have to be sewn back in. So.
Michelle Clapton, who is like an absolute genius, and as I say, I know I'll never look as good ever again on TV because she dressed us so beautifully, but she didn't believe in zips. Which is a problem when you're doing sometimes an 18-hour shooting day, essentially, and you're like, I'm gonna have to get cut out every time I have to pee, and my bladder is the size of a hamster's. So.
And of all of the people on the set, it's the cast that aren't really allowed to not be there because they need to point cameras at us and fight and what have you. So for us to leave set is like a thing.
Yeah. Right. So, but you shut down the whole production.
Oh yeah, they're like, well, we have to wait.
Yeah. Or like lunch, they're like, could you hold on till 6? Just because we really need to keep going.
You're like, no.
Yeah, because you can't eat in corsets.
Oh, no, you cannot.
I wasn't as corseted as you, to be fair.
Oh my god,
but some of those armours were pretty like intense.
Yeah, season 8, she just went like next level with the corsets.
That's exhausting just thinking about it, you know? Okay, so we have some social media questions for you guys, and I have one here from Nick Morris, and his question's for you, Emilia. Would you be open to or ever consider reprising your role as Daenerys if the opportunity presented itself? Either way, why do you feel that way? So a prequel or something? Or...
well, Nick, thank you for your question. 10 years is a significant chunk of life to live with one character, and I feel unbelievably lucky to have had the full range of everything that I've been able to explore as an actor through her eyes and walking in her shoes. And I really feel like that beginning, middle, and then when the season is finally done, that's a lot. So that's probably a no, because I think that
time to put, there's a time.
I also think that David and Dan are the geniuses of this world, and if they ain't doing it,
then you're gonna follow. Okay,
you know
absolutely.
What I mean? They're my people.
And then we have one from Elise Salinas, and she said, on screen, Missandei and Dany have a great friendship, which we already talked about a little bit, and loyalty. Was there that instant connection in tow that made it come across very sincere and believable on screen?
Well, I was thinking, do you remember when you remember the first one, and then we had a little bit of a situation?
Yeah.
Do you remember? And I was like, nah. Yeah. It was, I did not enjoy. Yeah.
Okay. So we're talking. Okay.
I know. Do you know what I mean? You remember in the.
It's just.
Sorry, no one. Sorry, that made no sense.
It's chill. I got very protective quite immediately.
Yeah. So I'm gonna. Yeah. So we were in Morocco filming, and my costume was somewhat revealing. Just a little bit, kind of blunt line, and there was a certain response to that.
And I did not take kindly to that response.
Yes.
So yeah, we bonded pretty.
So there was a very quick protected thing over each other.
Exactly. And it felt it suddenly, I was so grateful to have Nat join us and forever. And I think that just very quickly, it was like, oh, we're in it. These are long days.
Yeah.
We're getting into it. There's a lot of people here, and I think we just.
Yeah, we straight away I felt very oh, someone's got my back.
Right. You had that moment of you say something to her, I'm gonna. Yeah. Women should have their backs, and those comments shouldn't be made.
Yes.
Right? Absolutely.
Exactly.
What about the female roles and how that has evolved? Because that's one of the questions that Brandon Pena, we talked about that. Obviously very male dominated when both of you came in, and the way you were treated in the beginning, the way you were treated, and so it had to come across. It was part of the storyline. It had to. Was that difficult for either one of you to put yourself in the slave role, or being sold off? Just in that, you have to be in character. So what does it take to get to the depth of that moment?
Yeah, it's kind of, for me anyway, it was the first proper job that I'd had. So I was petrified anyway. So I think inhabiting the part of Daenerys that was vulnerable and scared and without any voice at all, and without any kind of power to speak her truth, as someone who was very fresh out of drama school and was 6 months earlier standing on a loo seat in a job she didn't want to be in, going, oh my god, it was very easy to inhabit that particular space. But then I was very lucky that within the arc of season 1, by the end, she found a strength that I felt I had too, because I'd had 10 episodes of filming kind of under my belt before we got to that bit. So yeah, it was definitely you know, the sensible actor response is like, oh yeah, it's just where my head, you know, to where I knew my head needed to be, which I absolutely was. I read the first book like 4 times and was really in her mind and in George R. R. Martin's head with regards to kind of what the material was for the first book. But most of it was my own fear, I think. So it was quite easy to inhabit that.
Channel the inner fear.
Yes, yes.
Well, obviously, those of you who've read the books know that like Missandei's like 9 years old in the books. She's not a grown woman, so straight away that kind of changes how you play her. And but the one thing that I took from the books, and the one thing that I did in preparation for this role, was just like think about, you know, what's somebody who has been enslaved, like, and who is surviving because to someone else they're property, they're disposable, they're nothing, and what that would take. And so for me, a lot of the choices I made for her were like her being very still, very like, almost like a walking encyclopedia. Like, I get asked a question, I speak when I'm spoken to. That's like submissive, brainwashing, years of it, what that might do to a person. And I had to really think about that. And, you know, so that's sort of where I started. And then I had the like absolute joy of figuring out what freedom meant for her, what having an opinion meant for her, what having a friend meant for her, what having a love meant for her. Like, I had to just figure out all these things and like how that might play in her performance and in her journey. And like suddenly this person that's been wound so tight, that's been oppressed in the most horrific of ways, how they start to release some of those binds. And it was just like, every sort of season they would give me this little nugget of something and I'd be like, oh, I'm gonna do something with that. And that was a moment where we see her smile or see her laugh or see her like her opinions, even if they were small.
Right.
You know, they came subtly, and that was something that I felt was important because a lifetime of slavery, she survived slavery. Like, that's not gonna just happen overnight. It's gonna take her some time. And yeah, so that was my kind of where my thoughts were mostly existing. Yeah,
It's so perfect and powerful.
Yeah, and I think that's what binds them early on, is because Daenerys has had a similar experience in that she was being sold and was kind of spent her life being groomed to be sold. There's that likeness that you see.
Like, they've had very different experiences, you know. Like the people of Narth are very passive, they don't like harm things, so they're just like easy targets for slavers, you know. And like obviously Daenerys has come from royalty and this historic family of power that's been kind of overthrown and blah blah blah. So like they've had very different life things, but there is this kind of space somewhere of their two worlds where they both know what it feels
They're very
to
similar.
be property,
Right.
You know, and to be nothing but a pawn in someone else's powerful game or something. So
Right.
yeah, and also they're both brilliant women, despite it all.
True that.
Right?
You know?
Yes. Okay, so do either of you have a favorite character? I mean, obviously without your characters, but is there somebody that's another character in the show that you're just super excited about or connected to? Yeah, Jon Snow?
Literally connected to Jon Snow.
I use that word in, you know, just in case.
I think I'm really into Arya. I just think she's such a badass. I mean, Maisie, she's just, what a cool character, right? And the story arc of that character is like,
So
it's the part of
beautiful.
dreams, to be honest. Like, she gets to sword fight, she's been this little adorable child that we saw like 10 years ago, and now she's come into her womanhood, and I'm like, oh, it's everything. I love her. That's who I
Yeah.
would say.
Do you have a favorite one?
It's so hard because as soon as you say favourite character, I just also think of the people. So my first thought is always Conleth. I'm always just like, I love Conleth. I love Varys. I think he's absolutely magnificent. But there's, I mean,
How do you pick one, right?
How do you pick one? And then watching the season, then everyone just flourishes in a way that when you're acting with people, obviously you see so much, but then you're like, oh, that's what you were doing, and then so it sort of sings even more. But
quite honestly, when you're
Sansa's
doing
kind
your
of killing
scenes
it.
too, I mean,
Yes.
you're so isolated from the actual story being pieced together. That,
No, exactly.
Right?
Yeah, exactly. So we get to experience genuinely from a fan perspective. If it's not our stuff because we're a million miles away, then we get to kind of enjoy the storylines that have been going on there. But in the same way that Maisie's badass, Sansa, Sophie Turner is just this season. She just kills it. She just absolutely, just slowly but surely, you're like, oh no, you are a rock. You are not. Nothing's getting past this girl.
Right.
And she is just the power that she's brought for this season. I think has been
Not a little bird
magnificent.
anymore.
No. Yeah.
I know. Okay, so, you know, the candles and the scenes and everybody's, you know, the candles are lit.
The candles inside.
They are real, right?
Days, and everyone gets black up their nose. Yeah.
Because you're breathing in fumes.
Genuinely, you get the you'll see, if you really zoom in, you see a lot of people with ash up their nose.
No,
yeah, because you're inhaling all of it. Because
Yeah.
it's literal braziers in a small confined space. And then you've got to tip the chandeliers every once in a while because you start to feel wax on your head and you're like, oh,
The wax.
we've been here too long.
What about the wine or the drinks that we have? What's in there?
Peter really has had hibiscus
tea.
tea. Because in the beginning they had cranberry juice, and Peter was like, "I'm buzzing, stop giving me cranberry juice, it's too sweet." So they started doing this watered down hibiscus tea.
And those cups, they seem so heavy. Are they heavy?
Yeah,
they're pretty authentic. A lot of the props are.
Yeah.
Other than the
props.
Brian props.
Shout out Brian.
But yeah, a lot of, other than the weapons, obviously when people are using them, they can't be as heavy as a real sword is, because that would be dangerous.
Oh, but
But sometimes they have real ones. You know,
Ian always loves a real.
He does love a real
He's
sword.
like, darling, give me the heavy sword.
Yeah. But a lot of the
Which I
props
can't even.
are pretty authentic. They're kind of forged out of one piece of metal, and you're like, oh, right,
It's very. It's not. You're not picking up a styrofoam.
Right.
Yeah,
Like
they make
anything
it.
that's painted.
They make it very easy for you to step into Game of Thrones world. Obviously, once you've gone through hair and makeup and all of that, and you're in your regal attire, you then step onto this set that's very beautifully dressed, and there are things that look like they were made in the way that they were.
It's really fantastic.
years
It
ago,
really is. Okay, so let's take it back to real world. And last night was a first for you, Emilia.
Yes,
I
it
mean,
was.
sadly,
Could
our
you
Rockets
tell?
didn't make it, but you were at the Rockets game last night.
It was so close.
But this was your very first NBA game ever?
It's my very first game.
Ever.
People keep being like, it's your first NBA game, and it's my first basketball game. I've never been.
How cool!
Right? Is that the same thing? Why just said the same thing?
And you were kind of fangirling, I guess, a little bit yesterday, right?
Oh my god. The Queen was in the building. Do you know what I mean? I was hurt in my heart when I saw that she was there and I wasn't
Queen
there.
Bee, Beyonce.
Because, you're
a huge fan.
No, I'm a huge fan, and then I've managed it, because now I've watched Homecoming 3 times, and every time I watch it, it genuinely gives me inspiration, and she's been on every single Dani playlist, Daenerys Dragons playlist, that I've ever had. She has. We run the world.
But we used to do this. So
We did.
You gotta show us.
No, there's no
No?
dancing.
Okay.
But we used to be in this scene,
Yes.
this Beyonce song is the theme of this song.
100%.
We
You
did
run
that.
the world.
You did.
What country
And
were
then
you
the
in
other
when we did?
one was Diva, remember?
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
A diva is a female version of a hustler. You know,
Yes!
She did that a lot.
Every step of the way.
That is so cool. Okay, so did you pump up music? What's on the playlist? I mean, we already talked about one Dani playlist, so what else is on it?
Oh my goodness, it sort of changed. This season was a little different. I took a little
Dark,
turn
a little
with
dark.
Yeah, a little dark, a little sad.
Yeah.
A little dark. Yeah. I'm now. I can't even.
Can't think, I know.
Oh, no, but there's when I did the walking through the fire for the last I completely forgot my episode that was in. I had a very hardcore playlist for that.
Do you remember which ones were on there, on that playlist, or no?
It was a lot of Beyonce. It was a lot of oh my
Survivor had to
Yes,
be on
Survivor,
there.
definitely.
I mean, I'm sorry, I'm not trying to like...
No, 100%. And then a lot of Stormzy, and then just maybe like a Rage Against the Machine.
Because everybody
just
needs,
to throw it in there.
you need music to get yourself pumped up.
Yeah.
Can I just say, Emilia Clarke is like amazing at rapping. No, but she does this thing, and it's the funniest thing ever, where she raps but as the Queen of England.
Oh,
And raps.
I
And
gotta
it's
do that.
amazing. Sorry, I don't mean to put you on the spot.
No.
But
The one that I'm thinking of is so rude. Like sometimes when we do like a really big wide shot, and you know they're not listening to your microphone, or if they are, they're giggling because you can't see what you're. I would do all the actions of like very serious, but actually you're doing like a ludicrous lyrics.
I love it.
And Jacob's like standing next to me being like, "You're making me laugh."
Can we get a taste? Do we get a little something?
So rude.
I mean, whatever. Sorry, I feel like I put you in a spot right now. Sorry
I
about
make it
that.
so good I don't want to leave, so I've got to no. What is your fantasy? I can't continue. That's the only vaguely PG version of that rap. It's a ludicrous rap.
Okay, so we love that you fly on the dragon, of course, but it's not as cool, right? Filming it?
Wait, no, yeah. So as soon as you do the first one is cool, but genuinely, it's like for each minute of dragon riding, or even 30 seconds of dragon riding, that's a week of filming.
A week.
It's mental. And then they're like, and then there's a lot of like, no, you've got to, because the thing is programmed, the buck is programmed.
And it's literally a buck, like a green
It's
box.
a buck, and it's super high up, and then there's a woman with kind of a joystick situation. She's got, the flight path is pre-programmed.
Oh, of course it is.
And there's a lot of, now the buck in the last season, it's got 3 individual pieces that all move kind of independently of each other. So you're on it, and I get a lot of, no, but you're telling the dragon where to go. I'm like, well, when you've got 20 moves of all of these individual pieces, and I've got to remember where each of them go, so it looks like I'm the one who's doing
in control,
it.
yeah.
It can, yeah. And then every once in a while, it just, in the last season, it got a bit tired, and it just started to like go as I was getting a note, or as I was like getting off the thing, and you'd be like, whoa, that's a thing I'm harnessed in.
Am I right in saying though that we would rap and you would be there for like another month and a half?
Literally a month
Like
and a half.
everyone else would go home from
Yeah.
Belfast. And
Yeah.
To rap, to
And
do
in
all
particular,
that?
yeah, so it was MoCo unit, which is movement capture, and there was one season where everyone, all of the crew who were there, and me, who was the only person who was doing it that season, there was kind of 2 months of it, and we called it the infirmary because as soon as everyone got sick, and then as soon as the first person who got sick got well again, the last person who got sick would make them sick again.
Right. It was
Dark times, yeah. If I look miserable on that thing, that's why. It's just, yeah.
Well, okay, so we're going to be wrapping up here shortly, and welcome both of you to Houston. We hope that you have such a great time here. And maybe just some parting words if there's struggling actors and actresses out there, or somebody just looking to find their purpose. Any advice?
Oh my goodness, I think it's a long journey to find your voice, and it's a long journey to find out what you really want to do in this world, and it doesn't need to look like you think. It doesn't need to look like the glamour that this job can sometimes look like. But I think patience, true patience and self-belief is what hopefully we'll get, especially speaking to actors who are looking for that window of opportunity, because it will come if you believe in what you're doing. But I really think that that patience and holding on is it's definitely been my journey for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a long journey, it's a long haul, and I always think about that sort of image of like treading water. Like you'll stay above as long as you keep keep going. You have to keep kicking your legs, and because eventually, like if people get tired and then they kind of go under. They're like, oh, I'm done, I'm tired.
Yeah.
And actually, like the longer you just keep kicking, you'll be fine.
Exactly.
And and I also think as well, there's always been this very like kind of traditional way to get into acting or to be an actor. And you know, I took a very not very traditional way at all. Like I didn't train. I sort of just like, sometimes I think I snuck in and people haven't figured it out yet. But there are so many talented young people who, and you have all these resources. Like when I was coming up, we didn't have like smartphones in the way that we do now. Like people are making movies on their phones, and they're being submitted to film festivals and then getting funding. Like there's so many ways. If you can find a group of creative people that like want to make something cool, and you can make stuff. Like I'm only just figuring that out now at 30. I'm like, well, in the last couple of years, I'm like, I can make stuff. I'm not waiting for someone to tell me this is, we want to give you this job. I'm like, oh, I'm gonna write a script and I'm gonna do, you know, that's
the most fulfilling sense, right?
There's nobody that's gonna write your story as well as you and like make your story as well as you. So like go out there and do it.
Ladies, thank you so much for your time.